welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 3 of my Peacock mask series, and in this video we're going to be working more on the headdress and on the ribbon. If you're following along with traditional painting materials, be sure to check out part 1 in this series, where I have a list of all the materials that I use. In this video series, we're going to showcase the techniques of watercolor, acrylics, and colored pencils. The app that I'm going to be using is Infinite Painter for Android, and I'm going to go ahead and start by adding the black ribbon on the edge of the collar. And you can go ahead and use the Blackwell brush for this in Infinite Painter, and just make it kind of a zigzaggy shape. We don't want it to look straight or anything because it's on the edges of the folds of the collar. And you can use either black with a dark green tint to it, and if you're following along with acrylic paint, just go ahead and use Hooker's green and throw it in your black. And then we want to go ahead and work on the folds again here, and I'm adding a little bit of blue to the folds in the collar because it's got kind of a shimmery bluish look to the fabric, and we want to try to get that look into our painting. And if you're using traditional materials, then just go ahead and use ultramarine blue acrylic color for that, and you might throw in a little bit of white acrylic gesso to your ultramarine blue, and that will give it a lighter blue look. And then for the highlights on the folds, just add white acrylic gesso to your Hooker's green if you're following along traditionally. And the brush that you probably will want to use is your short script brush or a number 3 round, or just something that has a smaller bristle to it. And so here I'm trying to blend it in a little bit and just kind of get the look of a cloth collar there. And then I'm working a little bit more on the mask and just trying to refine the shape of it a little bit. And you can use a really light yellow color, and I'm using the Blackwell pencil for that too because I want kind of a broken line look or a grainy look, just to kind of give it a glitter paint look. And so I'm just working on the different shapes in the mask here and just trying to get it more detailed and more accurate here. We're getting pretty close to getting the mask the way we want it, but we just need to tweak it a little bit more and work on the shapes a little bit more here. And then I'm working on the yellow part of the headdress at the top, and you can use a dark brown for the folds. And just go ahead and, if you're following along traditionally, use burnt umber or burnt sienna, just kind of a darker brown. And we want to smudge all this together, and Infinite Painter, I've got it probably set on the Leo brush for the smudge there. And then I've gone back to the Blackwell pencil for more highlights here, and you just want a lighter yellow here again. And I'm just trying to get kind of a glittery look here, so I'm putting a whole bunch of broken lines down. And if you're following along traditionally, do the same thing, make broken lines and smudge it with your paper towel or your finger, and let the background color, the darker brown, come through a little bit. We don't want to cover all that up. Just keep some of your dark showing through. And then I wanted to make it look a little bit more reddish, the folds. So you can add a reddish brown color here. Again, if you're using traditional acrylic colors, burnt sienna is a good color for that. Throw in a little bit of cadmium orange to it. Just trying to get an orangey brown look color here. And I'm just working and adding the folds back in. You kind of have to go back over it again. That's why it's best probably to do this with acrylic paint. Again, if you're going to do this with colored pencils, you can't do very many layers, so you kind of have to get it right with colored pencils. You have to be more careful with your strokes, and you usually have to work light from dark with colored pencils. You can, I guess, go back over it with acrylic and then put your final highlights on with your colored pencils. You can put a light colored pencil color over a dark acrylic and that will work, but you can't have very many layers of that. And you need to have paper that has a good toothy surface where it will take layers, because after a while it just gets too slick. So go ahead and add your highlights on here and smooth them out again. And if you're using colored pencil, they have something called colorless blenders, or you can use white, and that just kind of helps it blend into the bottom layers and sort of smears out your color. Here I'm adding on the black ribbon on the edges, and again you can use a dark green or a dark blue. We don't want it totally black, but we want it a really dark color. And also make the line look broken so that it looks like it's on top of the folds of the headdress. And then work some more on the folds. You can add the highlights with a light green color. Again, if you're following along traditionally with acrylic paint, add in hooker's green or pine green and white acrylic gesso. And then to darken the headdress, we want a dark brown for the dark color on the yellow folds. And so just go ahead and put that there and look at the shapes of your photo reference to try to get your folds accurately and smudge it in. And just keep going back and forth and working on your folds and adding dark and adding light until you get kind of the shape that you want. And it takes a little bit of practice to do this, but you finally will get where you can do cloth. You just have to kind of keep working at it and just keep smudging and keep the edges soft. And here I'm decorating the ribbon on the edge, adding the little gold highlights that are there. And if you're following along with traditional acrylic paint, just go ahead and use yellow ochre for that. We just want kind of a light yellow color. And also along the cap that goes on top of the head and right under the headdress part. And just go ahead and just start adding all these little details. And you're going to be using a small brush, probably a small script brush, or a number 3 round. Anything that will help you give the small details, or if you're using colored pencil, that will also work just fine for the small details. And then I'm working on the ribbon a little bit, just working on the curly cues of the shape here. We want it to look kind of like it's curled around here, and I'm using black to refine the shape just a little bit. Again, probably a dark blue or dark green. And then I'm wanting to add the gold highlights on the ribbon here, and it's kind of transparent. So you kind of can smudge that a little bit, smudge the color into the ribbon there, and it'll give it kind of a transparent look. And just go ahead and make your lines curved, follow along the edges of your ribbon to give it the curved look. And I'm working on the shape of it. I didn't get it quite right, so if you do that traditionally, you're going to have to go back in and change the background. And if you had watercolor for the background, that's going to be harder, so probably just leave it. Just leave it longer and don't worry about the shape of the ribbon that much. It doesn't need to be accurate. It just needs to look plausible. Like it will, and by that I mean like it will fit into the picture. You don't always have to have it exactly like the photo reference. In fact, sometimes you don't want it to look like the photo reference, exactly because there might be things that don't look as artistically pleasing. So here I'm just working more on the ribbon, and you use a light yellow color for that. And if you're following along with traditional acrylic paint, just go ahead and use your long script brush to draw in the lines of the ribbon there, and use cadmium yellow light with white acrylic gesso mixed in. We just want a really light yellow color there because we want it to look like it's gold. And just keep working on the edges and refining them a little bit. And you can go back with your acrylic paint on the ribbon and go ahead and add the black lines in, so you can sort of fix the way the curlicues of your ribbons will look. So this is the end of part 3 of our Peacock mask series. And in part 4, the final part, we're going to be putting all the final touches on the mask and finishing out the feathers and refining the headdress and all the final little details that we need to finish the painting. So thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.